Literature of Exploration, Thomas Hariot, by Giancarlo Sánchez Anillo and Arley Alejandro Páez García, Universidad de San Buenaventura, sede, Bogotá. The relationship between exploration and literature is linked by the fact that although innocent of literary ambition, the accounts of primary geographical exploration in America are not without literary interest. They constitute the foundation upon which much of our imaginative literature is built. The period of exploration is the one that goes between the 11th and 16th century. Within this period, there are accounts of primary geographical exploration in America. This means that there was a shift from the Native American literature praising the nature to somewhat a part of the European literature, especially English literature, at the end of the period. The first European record of exploration in America are the Vinland Sagas, the Norse discovery of America. The Vinland Sagas are two of the classic Icelandic sagas, but even among the special works of literature, they have a special place. They tell the story of the Norse exploration and attempted colonization of North America over 5 centuries prior to Christopher Columbus. Both sagas tell the legendary story of Eric the Red, who was outlawed from Icelandic by the 10th century and founded a colony of Icelanders in Greenland. And the sagas even suggest that he named Greenland in order to attract more settlers there. The events took place in the first decade of the 11th century, and the accounts of the sagas tell the story of the first landing in what is today Nova Scotia in Canada. The first known and sustained contact between America and the world was in the account of famous voyage of Italian explorer Christopher Columbus. On August 3rd, 1492, Columbus had sailed from Spain to find an all-water route to Asia. On October 12th, more than 2 months later, Columbus landed on an island in the Bahamas that he called San Salvador. For nearly 5 months, Columbus explored the Caribbean, particularly the island of Guana, present-day Cuba, and Hispaniola, present-day Santo Domingo, before returning to Spain. When Columbus arrived back in Spain on March 15, 1493, he immediately wrote a letter announcing his discoveries to King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella, who had helped him finance his trip. The letter was written in Spanish and sent to Rome, where it was printed in Latin. The letter also contained recounts of the trip's drama and deterred the men, feared monsters, and thought they might fall off the edge of the world. That was part of the first literature in Spanish that has recount in the Old World by explorer Christopher Columbus. After Columbus' epistle came the History of the Indies by Bartolomé de las Casas. The history, which by his request was not published until after his death, is an account of all that happened in the Indies, just as he has seen or heard of it. But rather than a chronicle, it is a prophetic interpretation of events. The purpose of all the facts that he describes is the exposure of the scene of domination, oppression, and injustice that the European was inflicting upon the newly discovered people. It was Las Casas' intention to reveal to Spain the reason for the misfortune that would befall when they became object of God's punishment. Initial English attempts at colonization were a total disaster. Roanoke Colony, the first colony on record, was established in 1585 on Roanoke Island, in what is today's Durr County, North Carolina. The colony was sponsored by Sir Walter Raleigh. The New World first group of English colonists were part of 3 different English expeditions that would arrive on that island. 2 groups would return to England, but the third would disappear, never to be seen again. The island was home to Native American tribes who initially welcomed the Englishmen, but violence flared after colonists assassinated the chief, and they were forced to abandon settlement. It has been widely accepted that the colonists were massacred by local tribes. Other hypotheses state that they died out of starvation and they couldn't resist some natural conditions of the area. The second colony, Jamestown, was established in May 14, 1607. The colony was the first permanent English settlement in America. The first settlers hoped to forge new lives away from England, but life in the early 1600s at Jamestown consisted mainly of danger, hardship, disease, and death. All of the early settlers in 1607 were men and boys. Within weeks, they built a basic fortification to protect themselves against attacks from local Indians. The Indians' reception of the settlers was mixed. Some welcomed them, while others assaulted them. Literature of the period paints America in glowing colors as the land of riches and opportunity. However, settlers had to endure exacerbation, brutality, and misrule in order to survive.